Oh, I know the debate and the presidential race are a big deal, but early in the week, 38 studios came back to dominate.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
On Friday evenings, we usually have a single issue conversation, and we do that again this evening. We record our Friday programs on Thursday afternoon, and it's important because in case something really big happens on Friday and I don't mention it, I don't want you to think I'm like, woohoo, no, out. But so many of you watch on Friday nights, and we thank you so much for that. Welcome into my state of mind. 38 Studios has been on my mind, and I've done a lot of editorializing on this over the course of the last 6 years. But I can't tell you that I've done the kind of expertise and diligent journalistic work on it. I've applied some journalistic skill to it, I promise you, but I am not a walking encyclopedia of the data. But Ted Nesi certainly is at WPRO.com, and he's kind enough to join me tonight, along with the only person who voted no on 38 Studios as a member of the now reformed Economic Development Corporation, and that's Karl Wadensten. Both are on my set tonight, so with no further ado, in case you missed the shill storm, as I call it, it's late enough. Watch.
After the radio interview, Schilling confirmed for me he had been interviewed by the state police as part of the criminal probe.
But when you go back and look at exactly what...
In his interview with John DePietro on WPRO, Curt Schilling claims he was told that former House Speaker Gordon Fox and Providence attorney Michael Corso, one of the architects of the 38 Studios deal, may have committed a crime.
You believe there should be people in jail?
Yeah, I think it's another follow the money.
Schilling did not say who made those claims. Earlier this year, the Attorney General announced no charges in the criminal probe. Schilling tells Target 12 he was interviewed by state police. Did you go before a grand jury?
No, nothing. I never got subpoenaed.
What were you asked about in that interview with state
police? Just what I remember, just about the events. About what happened when and who and what I could remember and what I couldn't.
Corso's attorney shot back in a scathing statement accusing Schilling of slander. He wants to blame everyone but himself for making what has proven to be a very poor business decision, not only for himself and the state of Rhode Island, but Mr. Corso as well. Separately, Schilling also made this claim about the former Providence headquarters of 38 Studios.
We lived in that building for a year and a half. We never had a building occupation permit.
How did that happen?
Because I signed autographs for the people that were coming in to do the inspections, and apparently that was how it worked.
We looked into this claim and found that there had been some temporary occupancy permits issued for that building, so they were legally allowed to be in there. But we also found those permits expired 8 months prior to the company's collapse. With the Target 12 investigators, Tim White, Eyewitness News.
Poor Tim is trying to put a television-produced less than 2-minute package together to try to summarize all of this kind of stuff. And it's so hard to do, isn't it, Ted? It really
especially.
is.
I mean, that was a 3-hour conversation on the radio that went back and forth different directions. Then on top of that, Schilling spoke to reporters outside. Obviously, he's always on Twitter. He called in, I believe, to WPRO again the next day with more to say. So it's. Reporters, it's not anyone's job to make our lives easier, but it's a lot for us to manage as so much is hitting the wall.
Instead of just doing segment and segment, I just figured I'd bring both these guys on and have them weigh in as we go. Karl has visited here X number of times, friend of mine and the show, no doubt, and I think of Rhode Island in the sense that instinctively, going back to the day that the Economic Development Corporation approved this project on its own, you were the lone vote no.
Right.
We've talked about it here ad nauseum, but give me the 30-second recollection and when this stuff all cooks up again, what you think about what you did and the perspective that you have.
Back in 2010, I looked at it as if it was my $75 million, my personal money. Would I invest in this guy? It was a brand new company. Yes, they had a track record of doing some kind of work and having the first game Copernicus, I guess, launched, and then the second MMO game going. And that market space, I said, if it was my money, would I invest in this? And in Rhode Island, too, as well, the economic situation in Rhode Island, that $75 million would have gone a long way to a lot more businesses. So
I wondered, Ted, if you have a perspective on Karl's vote. In a way, you brought, and I say this respectfully, a kind of appropriate naivete to the deal, in the sense that you've learned in 6 years a lot about politics.
Oh, an incredible amount.
But you were there as a volunteer and still volunteer on the Commerce Corporation,
Yes.
the new version of the EDC. You're the right kind of public servant, no compensation, thinking, and you're not really aware of the politics around you. Do you get the same feeling?
Yeah, well, I think what was striking me, especially now, we now have not only the open meeting minutes from those meetings that Karl was in. It's funny to be sitting here together, and I've been trying to ferret out what you guys were up to all these years, and now we know. And you also have the closed minutes meetings. And you asked, we now know, one of the key questions that now is being brought up again, which is, I believe, if I recollect correctly, Karl, you asked Governor Kucheri, who was chairing the board, we're only giving them 49 of the 75. They are telling us there's a financing gap here, or we know they need more money than that. What are they going to do? And Governor Kucheri, in the minutes, somewhat, it appears cavalierly, says, well, they'll just raise it from investors.
Yeah, Ted, so let's recap that. That was back during the vote, when we voted as a full board. So, and when we went into the vote, I was just thinking about my frame of reference, that whenever we launch something new at a manufacturing company, I said it to Kim, it takes us twice as long, 3 times as much money.
Right.
So there was no contingency plan for what happens if these guys miss the runway. So I was asking at that point, trying to just figure out what are we doing, and to get some of the other board members engaged, because no one was asking any questions before the vote.
And you weren't satisfied with the answer,
No,
Clay, because you voted
because I came back to another question.
The thing about it is, not to revisit this part, because there's so many more aspects of this that we need to talk about, but you are not the only brilliant mind in that room. You're talking about CEOs of substantial people who run their businesses with the same kind of acumen. That is what the mystery is, I think, for a lot of folks.
I don't want to minimize myself, but I'm the newbie. I'm the guy that isn't one of the pillars of the state of Rhode Island, with an organization that's just global. A lot of these were global and real good thinkers. So the whole time, Dan, I'm thinking, what am I not seeing? Why am I not seeing this in the light that everybody else sees?
And by the way, that's what the reporter, I remember as a reporter, I was brand new at Channel 12 when this deal went down. And what you're bringing up is actually something I question. Anytime I would report something skeptical, I'd said, but wait a minute, I'm a kid reporter, and all these powerful CEOs, with the exception of Karl, have voted to approve this, and even Governor Kucheri was a former bank executive. So who am I to be skeptical?
Are we missing something?
I'm not a business person, and they are like, what are we missing? Because it looks like it might not work, and it looks really risky, and yet these people are saying, no, it's going to be fine.
I want to get down to some of the nitty-gritties of the whole thing, and some of the things said by Curt Schilling this week. But I don't know if I've ever asked you this question in this way. 6 years later, and after this kind of pops up again, in the way it did this week, do you walk around with a kind of a thank God feeling?
No.
Thank God I didn't. I mean,
Well,
thank God I don't have to walk around with the guilt of saying, go forward on this thing.
Yeah, so this has turned into 6 years of Rhode Island history, 6 years of a lot of money and a lot of attorneys and a lot of grief for a lot of people. And the one that kind of just feeling of that is at least going home to my wife and saying, thank God that whatever was in my brain and why I saw that this wasn't the deal, that I didn't go the other way. Number one, I don't have enough time to be on the opposite side of the fence, agreeing with the deal, nor would I think that I'd have the leverage with attorneys and things, because I'm sure when people were deposed, they just didn't walk in, they brought attorneys. So there was significant cost for the people that voted yes to this.
I want to
thank God.
Yeah, thank God. Let me just throw this piece of audio. Just that Bob Watson radio piece. This is actually audio from the fateful night when the General Assembly's House of Representatives voted to pass the $125 million loan guarantee after 2 failed attempts at $50 million, 75, now we know, set for 38 studios. Watson knew something.
I don't get that. I mean, this is possibly the scariest vote you can cast, because a decade from now, this could be a scandal all over the Providence Journal, and you guys started it. You approved it. I credit Representative Earhart. He's looking after the interest of the people of the state of Rhode Island.
And he goes on and on to say, you and your money. Curt Schilling in this show talked about having watched Watson on the screen sitting with Michael Corso, the lead agent, broker, tax credit guy, and Curt's CFO, thinking, you know what, that guy's making a pretty good speech.
And oh my God, these guys don't know.
And oh my God, nobody knows that we're doing this deal.
Yeah.
Wasn't smart enough or didn't have the integrity to be able to say, uh-oh.
Well, that becomes the question, right? You know, I think Curt Schilling, in the interview this week on WPRO, he cast himself as naive in a lot of ways. He said, oh, I should have been more involved. I should have been more hands-on. But I do think there's a question to be asked, well, especially as a small government conservative, hyper-skeptical of the government, we see how he feels about President Obama and Hillary Clinton with Curt Schilling. To hear that and still go through with the deal, his company needed money. You could argue it's not his job to tell us to be better governed than we are in Rhode Island, but it was striking to hear him say how shocked he said he was by that Watson speech, yet to my knowledge he never took any action on it.
It's not the most ironic indoor throat of the gut thing that Curt Schilling said this week. When we come back, we'll play it for you. Stay with us.
If I was the governor, I would have never even offered this deal. Government doesn't belong in private business. But I'm on the other side of this. My job and responsibility is to my company, to my employees, and I was doing everything I could do within my legal means to make that be a success.
Gee, thanks, Curt.
An echo actually kind of what we heard Donald Trump say in this week's debate, where Hillary Clinton says this and that about him not paying enough taxes, and he said, you should have stopped me. It's kind of the same point. Like, hey, when I'm a businessman, my job is just to use the laws as they are written, but I don't think this was good policy.
Yeah, but Ted, there's a certain point of opportunist versus, being just real about the whole thing. But the Bob Watson piece we talked about during the break, that he commented, that's what he would have been doing on the floor. The same exact kind of thing, doing this passionate speech that this is the scariest vote we're ever going to have. And he's saying, by God, I'd be there first as well, swinging my bat saying, wake up, guys, something's awry here.
Do you think this is a genius rehabilitation effort, or is this guy just got a good dose of ADD and is kind of golly shucks from soup to nuts 6 years ago and here?
I tend to think a lot of what Curt Schilling's saying is on the level. It's what he believes. I don't know if all of it necessarily checks out. Or, even there was an error in the op-ed we caught immediately that he published in the Journal last weekend, and he had to admit, he didn't have the timing right of when their bond amounts changed.
He's a Trump fan, but he's very Trumpy in his style, is he not?
Could not agree. As I listened to him on the radio, it reminded me so much of Donald Trump. And I know just saying that carries a lot of connotations right now, but just the stream of consciousness way of speaking, the serious accusations being lobbed pretty cavalierly at Michael Corso in this case, in the way Donald Trump does. I think I think Curt Schilling honestly feels he takes responsibility, but then he also wants to really make sure Lincoln Chafee comes out of this as tarnished as he does. I think it's kind of a drag you down with me thing.
Well, I think we had that headline. If we didn't have it today, we had it last week. I mean, the headline that ran, that began the shitstorm on the radio and the following coverage was his op-ed piece undressing Lincoln Chafee for this. I've always said I think Lincoln Chafee is as much at fault because I think he did a passive-aggressive "I told you so" and let that ball drop without the kind of due diligence that the fiduciary agent of the state, the governor, should have been, or at least one of them, should have. That responsibility should have required Lincoln Chafee to be much more intimate with this deal. Don't you agree?
Yeah, let me chime in because you talk about Trump, Lincoln Chafee. These guys were both leaders, whether it was Governor Chafee, Governor Kachiri, and as well Curt. He should have been leading out front in this organization. During that interview, he said a lot of things that he kind of had backseat. He was shake hands. He was watching things. You don't know which side he was in. If he was a leader, what kind of leader was he going to be? Was he going to be an honest, straight shooter, move forward, or is he going to be a leader that has ego? And he just wants to foster his ego. And then Link as well. Was Link going to dive into this whole thing and try and untangle what was going on, or was he going to go on a notion and act on that
well,
notion?
you know, if you're leadership is this term that a lot of people have a difficult time getting their hands around. But since you brought it up, it's really apt that you did. Let's talk about the leadership. The leadership in the legislature, Gordon Fox, and now it seems more clear, although Curt Schilling is not the ultimate credible source here, he's sticking this thing on Constantino with a lot more knowledge than Constantino admitted in the House Oversight Committee. He's in Vermont right now, probably biting his nails over coming back to Rhode Island. And Michael Corso, who's in it for the money. So there's no leadership there. Governor Kacheri was looking for some kind of legacy exit out. Not a lot of leadership there. The EDC board, with a bunch of born leaders, made a terrible decision, sans you. Not a lot of leadership there. Governor Chafee comes in with a political "I told you so," kind of turns his head to the deal. It falls apart. Not a lot of leadership there. And in a WPRO debate that you sat for, and Tim White probed Governor to be Raimondo, will you do a separate state investigation on this? And she said yes. She hasn't done it. No leadership there. There's no leadership anywhere in this.
And I think you have just answered the question of why is this such a festering sore in Rhode Island public life? Because there are very few heroes in this story. And I'm not just saying it because Karl is here, but I think that's one reason we always end up talking to Karl, is because there are very few people who come out looking particularly good in this whole saga. And one of the few is the one board member who, despite peer pressure from his fellow board members, said, no, I'm not going along with this. I'm not. And you never said, I'm brilliant, I know it's going to fail. No. You just said, I'm not sure enough to give my support, which is a different thing. But yeah, and it's interesting with Governor Raimondo. I mean, I know her staff feels, she doesn't get enough credit that she pushed successfully to get all those civil lawsuit documents released that had been sealed. But at the same time,
big deal.
Well, as a reporter, I have to push back at that a little. It was important to us to get that.
True. You know what? When you eventually do the obvious right thing and you get credit for doing the obvious right thing, it's a very low bar for applause for leadership.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I think the leadership that Dan's looking for, and you can tell me if I'm right or not, is that in this 6 years, and you and I emailed back and forth, and you said, when's this going to stop? I said, well, when the Martians land. Maybe we'll stop talking about 38 studios. But the key is, if you have a leader that takes a lead role in this, they assemble the facts, they assemble what's going on, they say what it is, you get clarity, you close the book and say we're moving on.
And
someone has to get that authentically, or we're going to stay on this until the end of time.
Absolutely, and I can't help but think of Governor Sondland's decision, the polar opposite decision he made when he comes into office, RISDIC collapses, huge crisis. He immediately has that report done that puts out all the dirty laundry, and nobody's happy about it, but they do feel they got the story, and there can be some, all right, what do we do now?
Well, this is a beautiful conversation, and it causes me to ask, what's going on at the new Commerce Corporation? What you just said, have you made that speech in front of the current board?
About leadership?
What you just said about what you do to vet this and get clarity and close the books.
I try and do it all the time in my own.
Well, are they deaf? Are they ignoring you? Do they not report back to this governor? Because you're, again, in this administration, doing your volunteer best to advance, and I know how much in-kind contribution you make to the state on lean technology and everything. Your heart's in the right place, your head's in the right place. Yet, you've got an administration now that doesn't recognize that the very thing that you're charged to do and that board is charged to do, which is develop the economy, that the economy will not be developed when the stench and cloud of this thing continues to hang. And until the proper closure of the books occurs, we'll never get past it, because every public-private partnership that comes aboard will be debated and debunked by the public because of
38 studios.
So do you make the speech?
Not that speech in particular.
Well, make the speech.
I will make the speech. We're having a meeting
Cut
on
the show,
Monday.
edit the show, and bring it in. No, seriously.
But
I don't want to make you the villain,
Ted,
but you know what I'm saying.
Ted, I do make this speech indirectly when I talk to the media, when I talk to different people, because I'm the only one coming out.
I know you just did, and you're in the media because you're on the television.
Yeah, now in the TV. and I'm getting to look at a camera. You put a camera there. No, but seriously, guys, I'm the only one that really comes out and tries to get say what I mean what I say, don't be mean about it, because I don't know all the facts, but I know it from my perspective, and people want to have some kind of answers, have some kind of clarity, and I'll have the discussion again.
Dan, the other thing is that when I think about 30 days, I was thinking about this week. So Monday, the day before Schilling's big WPRO interview, we had big news. Care New England's merger, the second biggest hospital chain here, our fourth biggest employer, their merger has collapsed with South Coast Health in Massachusetts. They are not in a financially great position. There are going to be huge ramifications for Rhode Island's economy depending on what path Care New England takes. And yet, if you probably compared the amount of coverage Care New England, which matters hugely to the future of the economy in Rhode Island, has gotten, to another picking at the carcass of 38 studios, but I actually think that's part of the problem with not having closure on 38 studios is it's still this grenade that explodes and also distracts our attention from things that really do matter a lot, and that, you know, there's not much we can do anymore about 38 studios.
Fledgling, we're going to answer grand jury and state police testimony and witness documents is not what the investigation you're referring to, what I've been begging for, and what I think you've probably pointed to as missing is. They just aren't the same things.
No.
All right, final word on this and the politics of this week as well when we come back.
I'm going to run, but I haven't talked to Shonda, my wife. Okay. And ultimately it's going to come down to how her and I feel this would affect our marriage and our kids.
Now you guys are both married. Is that how I should handle it once I'm married?
Yeah.
We're going to get back to this because there's a follow. 15 seconds on what we've learned this week on 38.
On 38, Curt Schilling is mad, says Mike Corso did bad things, but it's...
The broker deal.
The broker deal, but I can't say I learned that much more. Maybe reinforce some of the stuff we thought.
What did you learn?
That Curt Schilling wasn't the leader to lead this company.
Well, that's a Captain Obvious.
I
you did better last segment. You were really good last segment. You make that speech to the Commerce Board. Okay. So
it's live, folks.
So Curt says, I'm running. Except I got to talk to Shonda. And Shonda calls Matt Allen on WPRO.
Oh, we got it.
You know, and seeing what Rhode Island did to him, I don't know that I would want the family to go through that again. Mm-hmm. Because that's what they're going to do to him. It doesn't affect him, but it depends on how it affects the rest of the family. And it's not a decision for just me. It's a decision for the entire family.
Can I ask this question? We only have a minute. It's a whole show. When did this stuff become a public discussion? Geez, I'm thinking about it. It's been customary. But I'm running, I got to cut to my. Then the wife calls in and she talks about her.
But think about
this is the Facebook, social media, 15 minutes of fame dynamic that
he's doing what Donald Trump did. He is flooding the. Look at the headlines. He got national headlines out of that brief comment on the radio.
She calls in and we got to think. You know
it's
what?
Like Snapchat. It's like Snapchat.
Exactly.
It's social media all over the place. This is not clear, predictable
Everyone's
stuff.
Lives private lives are now out there for everyone to evaluate and participate in on a reality level.
Yeah, and there's an audience for it. And, I think the key thing to know about this, he's talking about running for the U.S. Senate, is that he's down, I think, 20 points or double digits right now in the early polling.
In closing, I know your fiance. I would suggest you talk about these things privately before you go public with them.
You want him on your show?
I agree 100%.
Long-time marriage? Long-time marriage? It's the best gift we can give you.
I love it. This is why I do the show.
I'll tell you what's up Monday when we come back. Stay with us. Politics of the day, the issues and marital vice from Dan Yorke's State of Mind. Coming up on the Monday program, question 2 on the Ethics Commission. Pay attention to John Marion from Common Cause, who'll be my guest. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Good night. Good night. Good night again.